Hello. Oh my God, it's us again. I can't believe it. It's another Riot Act Reviews. 2 in a week for us over here on the world's busiest podcast. Maybe, probably not. I mean, there's that guy. Oh man, what's his name? He's been in the news recently. The Spotify guy, the Neil Young guy, that guy. He's good. He does quite a few as well.
He does quite a lot.
All of our ones are relatively uncontroversial, comparatively, I would say. My name's Stephen Hill. Thank you very much for joining us on another podcast where we focus in on one album and we talk about said album. And I'm joined, as ever, by Remfry Deadman, who is looking a bit better after his COVID troubles over the past week or so. You feeling a bit better, Remfry? How's today?
Yeah, I had an incredibly long sleep last night, really long, and I feel generally much better. I can still feel, it's still there, but I can speak in a slightly higher register. I'm generally feeling a little bit more human, and really excited to be reviewing this record actually today.
Absolutely. So, like I say, this is where we review a brand new album of some note, and we're going to be talking this episode about Never Let Me Go by Placebo, or as Remfry likes to call them, Placebo. The 8th studio album from the legendary glam indie rockers, the follow-up to 2013's Loud Like Love album, although there was that 2016 EP, Life's What You Make It. There's also an MTV Unplugged thing that they did in that time. But so it's not like this is, God, we haven't seen Placebo for 9 years and suddenly they've come back. They've been around quite a bit.
No. On that note, the MTV Unplugged, just as an aside, is very, very, very good.
Yeah, it is good.
You know it, brilliant. Yeah, one of those Unplugs where they really take their songs and sort of tear them apart and then put them back together again. It's actually well worth checking out. It's not just acoustic versions of their songs. So yes.
But before we get into Placebo, which Remfry's just done it, Remfry spent ages reminding me that we can't just get straight into the review, and then off he goes straight into talking about the album that we're not even talking about.
I didn't think it'd come up very often, Placebo's MTV Unplugged, so I thought that was an opportunity to say it. That's all.
Yes, it is good actually. It's very good. I remember that coming out. It is good. A couple of things. If you're watching us on the YouTube channel, I don't know why I put the least important thing first. You might be able to see slightly off camera. There's a grotty old Slayer t-shirt and a pair of my pants drying on the radiator. But
you can win them in a competition.
That's one bit of news. Slightly better bit of news. We have a sponsor.
Hey.
We have a sponsor for the show, and we're going to talk about said sponsor very quickly. Now, it's those good folks at 2000 Trees Festival. So we want to say a massive, massive thank you to 2000 Trees for sponsoring the podcast, for being part of the podcast. I think if you've listened to the show or anything that we've done over the years, you'll probably be aware that we are a pretty big fan of this festival, just from lineup, ethos, setup, vibe, all the stuff. It is legitimately a really fucking cool festival. I've got the lineup in front of me here. We should say, by the way, it takes place this year from the 6th to the 9th of July, like you say, Upcote Farm in Cheltenham. And it's been a few years since the festival has taken place.
Yeah.
Idols, Thrice, Jimmy Eat World, Turnstile, Dinosaur Pileup, Creeper, Pup, The Get Up Kids, McCluskey, Royal Republic, Anti-Flag, Rolo Tomasi, Laura Jane Grace, Can't Swim, Lonely the Brave, Crossfaith, Stick to Your Guns, Pulled Apart by Horses, No Devotion. We did a podcast on No Devotion, how much we like that debut album of them. Good to see them coming back.
Yep.
Palm Reader, perennial favourites of the podcast. Bloody Ginger Wild Art, the legendary Ginger Wild Art is playing 2000 Trees as well. Puppy, love Puppy, and their kind of Weezer meets Van Halen riffs. Kid Capici, who did a song, the last song of theirs that I heard, I thought was with Bob Vylan. I thought it was really, really good. Bob Vylan himself was playing. Foxjaw, again, who we've been very, very positive about on this this podcast. Goddamn. I'm just going through the stuff that I happen to like.
Ooh.
Nervous, Blood Command, Preston Miko, Haggard Cat. There's loads. Leached. There's fucking loads of stuff here. I'm still going. In Technicolor. Ithaca.
That Creature
Harriet,
band are playing. They're great. Harriet.
Clue, Creature. Witch Elm. Higher Power. There's a lot in there. There is a lot. I mean, that's just the stuff that I personally want to go and see. Just a really nice concoction of kind of indie punk rock bands, alternative rock bands, heavy bands, kind of not heavy in the denim and leather metal clad sense, but in the sort of the genuinely sort of abrasive, heavy alt extreme world. A very eclectic, good band. You know, where can you see Knock Loose and Jimmy Eat World together? Not many places. You can at 2000 Trees. Anyway, listen. We'd love to see you there at 2000 Trees, and thank you very much for them for sponsoring the podcast. If you would like to book a ticket, and I think you should, you can get 10% off of an already very reasonably priced ticket at 2000treesfestival.co.uk/tickets and enter the promo code Riot Act. And it doesn't matter what kind of case, lower or upper, you do with that promo code. Riot Act, all one word, 2000treesfestival.co.uk/tickets. 2000 Trees. It's going to be a good time, I think. You excited?
I'm really excited about 2000 Trees. Really excited. I know about some super brilliant stuff which is happening at Trees, which I cannot wait for. So, yes, I'm sacrificing going to see Pearl Jam in Hyde Park to go to 2000 Trees. So that's how much.
What a bloody martyr!
Yes, quite.
Yeah, yes, I am.
What I've always wanted to be called.
Yeah. All right.
I've always thought that Placebo would make a really good headliner for 2000 Trees.
Yeah.
Just to swim into that review. I don't know if you noticed the joins there, but I thought that was quite...
I think everyone noticed them, yes.
Okay, cool. But your feelings on that? Do you think that that could ever potentially happen? Or Placebo too big? Blah, blah, blah.
Well, I don't know, really, because when you think... Placebo at this point are kind of an arena band, a kind of cult arena band. I have said, actually, in my notes, I've put, at this point, Placebo feel like a really big... cult band. We've spoken quite a lot about different types of cult band. You think, you know, they play similar sized venues to I guess Idols did 4 nights at Brixton Academy recently. Last time I went to 2000 Trees, Enter Shikari headlined, and obviously they are now firmly established as an arena band, so I don't see why Placebo would be completely out of reach for 2000 Trees. They would be a big headliner, undoubtedly a big headliner, because have Placebo done the O2? I believe they have once done the O2, right?
They did the O2 on Battle for the Sun, if I'm remembering correctly. Yes. I think that was probably a one-off. I don't really know. I wasn't there, but yes, they have done the O2 once before. I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, look, getting into the review now. So the new Placebo album, we did a Writer's review on their 1996 debut album a little while back. I have said before, I don't really listen to Placebo that much these days. I think that first pair of albums are the ones that I listen to and I kind of know. And then Meds as well, which I listened to really off the back of the first single from that, Infrared, which I thought was fucking brilliant. And then I was like, this is a really good album as well. But I've not listened to loads of their back catalogue, even though everything I've ever actually fully sat down and listened to, I really, really like. Their covers album, the MTV thing, the kind of other little odds and sods I've heard, all the singles. I always really like Placebo, and it's weird to me that I only really fully know, probably like 3 of their albums, or now 4. But I know you have, Remfry. You know Placebo.
I certainly their, studio albums. I know all of their studio records. I'm familiar with all their studio records. I'm going to be ranking them soon for louder.com, so I'm aware of everything that they've done. I mean, don't know how much I delve into B-sides and stuff like that, but I'm certainly a pretty big Placebo fan. And for the main, in the main, I would say that they have been relatively consistent as a band. The only album of theirs that personally I didn't really get on with at all was the one previous to this one, Loud Like Love, which I thought was an interesting experiment, and I mean they went for something different, so I don't begrudge them doing it at all, but it didn't quite work for me. So I was a little trepidatious going into this record, to be fair. But spoiler alert, I needn't have been. But yes, that's my view on Placebo overall, generally.
Good. All right. Well, that's our views on Placebo, I guess. When Placebo are good, I think they're amazing. I mean, again, to hammer it home, I think we probably could have done their debut album as a classic album for me.
Yeah.
I think it's fucking amazing, and
there's more than enough. I mean, especially the way they were treated early on in the press and stuff like that. There's a lot of interesting things to go into, certainly, and a lot of very eye-rolling 90s, I guess homophobia, yeah, and stuff like that, and just completely misunderstanding where the band were coming from, blah blah blah. So yeah, we absolutely could have made that a classic album. I don't know, maybe we'll return to it one day. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. But in terms of me going, I wonder what Placebo sound like in 2022. I didn't really know particularly what I was going to get, but I think because they're a band with, like, Brian Molko has got such an instantly recognisable voice.
Yeah,
he's got such an instantly recognisable voice. I think Placebo as a band, to me, from my, I'm going to say limited. It feels silly. It feels weird to say limited knowledge when they're a band. I actually listen to Placebo quite a lot. I just listen to a couple of records, which I think are fucking fantastic. But I think those records have such a strong personality in his guitar tone, the way, his guitar style, not even really the tone, but the kind of the style of that kind of jangly riffing. He kind of uses all the strings. He kind of strums all the strings, doesn't he, Brian Molko? He's got a kind of like I can't really think of what the word is. I'm really kind of struggling for the word, but he doesn't riff like metal riffy, and it's not kind of jangly like indie guitar, but it's somewhere in the middle of those. It's a little bit
looser, I guess, than the metal riffing and stuff. That's certainly true of the first couple of records. I'm sort of just trying to think, does Brian do that now? But he plays a lot less guitar than he used to, I think, or a little bit less anyway. It's certainly, I mean, the way that Placebo has changed over the years, I think it's been a gradual change, but definitely, I mean, if you listen to their first album, then you listen to this one, you would almost think it were two different bands, almost. But certainly they've expanded. I mean, they've been through a couple of drummers, and I think after their last drummer left, Steve Forrest, I want to say, I might be getting that wrong, they sort of decided to continue on in the sort of feeder way of like, well, we're just going to have revolving drummers, and it's the two, Stefan and Brian, the two guys in Placebo, basically. But live, I have seen them with 7-8 musicians on stage, something
Makes
like
sense.
that. Yeah, and they really expand everything out, and they'll have like strings and stuff and lots of backing vocals and lots of synths. And I think the Placebo sound, the latter day Placebo sound, certainly from maybe Battle for the Sun onwards, maybe even Meds. I mean, it's difficult to know exactly when this began to happen, because it really does feel like a gradual process, but it has become a far, far more expansive thing. And I think that has really come to fruition in the studio on this record, because this feels like the most things that they have drawn from and brought into one record that I can think of from any of their back catalogue.
Right, okay. I was going to say that maybe, to me, it felt maybe like that was just to, in terms of comparing this to like the first album or the first couple of albums, is that maybe not down to the constraints of money and what they're able to, I mean, particularly on their first album, I guess, I think they always felt like quite an ambitious band, even though they initially didn't have loads of money or loads to work with. I always felt like there's that kind of glammy, androgynous grandiosity about Placebo, which means that I think the through line from that first record through to this, without really knowing the stops in the middle, I can definitely see it. I think they do have an incredibly strong sense of self. Placebo.
Oh yeah. Oh, their identity is very, very strong. Yeah.
And the way that the first song, Forever Chemicals, starts, it just grabbed me immediately. I think they write that riff, they do write these really kind of shimmeringly, brilliantly catchy riffs, Placebo. And it was almost like a kind of, it's not really a guitar riff, it's more like a kind of electronic riff, an electronic stab, an electronic pulse, if you like.
Very strange electronic sounds, which sort of give you an idea of the direction that this album is going in straight away. It feels a little bit reductive to call this Placebo's electronic album, because they've had electronics in their music for, Taste in Men from Black Market Music, I guess Pure Morning even. I mean, I can't think of many on the first record, but they have electronics has been a part of their sound for a long time. I think the way that they're integrated on this record makes it very much feel like A, it's seamless, and B, those electronics feel essential. That riff is almost entirely that kind of strange industrial and electronic build-up stuff. So absolutely.
Yeah, I was drawn to it really. I mean, it's like for me the bullseye comparative point to it would be something from the sort of the third to fifth Depeche Mode albums, when they were making their own sort of noises. They were sampling, they were hitting stuff and then sampling it and looping it and stuff. And I was like, oh, there's a bit of a kind of clanging, Construction Time again, Some Great Rewards era Depeche Mode on this. And I just for me that's always going to be something that I go, oh, good. And I think Brian sounds fucking great on it as well. Again, a voice not dulled by time, not kind of ravaged by time at all. He sounds pretty much as good as he did when I heard him in 1996, I think.
I think he sounds better, to be honest.
Yeah, he probably does sound better, actually.
If you go back to the first record, Brian's vocals are a little reedy. They're not very full, and that's just because he's had a lot of practice in the interim, and it's become a much better vocalist. But he certainly hasn't lost any power of his voice. I think it can be quite a Marmite voice, and I understand that sometimes when you get quite nasally voices, it can be a love it or hate it thing. But personally, I've always loved Brian's vocals. Brian's vocals. I think they're great. So.
I do, yeah. I mean, I think the second track, Beautiful Change, sound like classic Placebo to me. It's got this really fantastic lilting vocals that are just instantly in your head. He's got a really good knack for writing a unusual hook, Brian Molko, and it's got that propulsive beat that dips in the verses, swells in the choruses, choppy guitar parts that kind of thrash and then soar into the choruses. That kind of glammed up Pixies, quite loud thing that they do.
Glammed up Pixies is a great shout for that song.
Is kind of, to me, is classic Placebo, and I was like, this is what I like about this band. It's a really, really good Placebo song.
I love that song. It's so upbeat, and it just makes me happy when it's on. It's got those silly spacey synths in it which just make me smile. Apparently the song was written during a period of painful insomnia, which you wouldn't have got at all from the music, certainly. But an excellent song. Love it.
Yeah, really good. Brian Molko is a good vocalist. He's not always a good lyricist.
Yes.
Right. So there's a sort of thumpy glam rock beat to the next song called Hugs. And, it's not a terrible song, but a hug is just another way of hiding your face. That's not a great lyric, right? That's pretty bad.
It's not wonderful. Brian's done far worse than that in the past.
Yeah.
I kind of expect at least a couplet, at least one or two couplets every single album, which will stand out in that Brian Molko kind of way. I mean, on the last album, it was "My computer thinks I'm gay. I had to throw that piece of shit away." Just to give a bit of perspective. So, to be honest with you, I didn't really, because of that was the thing that was in my mind. I didn't. Yes, you're not wrong.
I mean, I almost kind of prefer that. That's much more the eye holes in a paper bag style thing, which is one of their most famous lyrics, and it's kind of so ridiculous. It's almost great. So. I think it's so ridiculous it is great, actually. But
that's the thing, isn't it? I do actually think Brian Molko's lyrics do sometimes affect that kind of so bad they're great thing. Sometimes, I mean, the lyrics.
Like Ollie Sykes.
Sure.
Except without. The first part's definitely true, right?
Yeah. The lyrics to Pure Morning, like, for example, it's just fucking nonsense. Like, it doesn't mean anything.
Oh yeah,
but,
awful. Yeah, really quite bad, but a great song. I mean,
that
song is so good that the lyrics can't ruin it.
Just don't notice it.
You notice it, but it doesn't ruin it. Whereas Hugs, I was like, it's not quite good enough a song. I mean, it's not the worst. I mean, the next song, Happy Birthday in the Sky, again, good song, but the lyrics are like Flight of the Conchords. Do you know, we were talking about Flight of the Conchords recently, like Happy Birthday in the Sky. Like, there's talk about kind of medicine and depression, and again, sort of fairly classic Placebo fare. I guess if I was looking at stuff from a glass half full perspective, I would say that song couldn't be any other band.
Quite. Yeah. I mean, I would say that. Maybe because I'm more well versed with Placebo, maybe I'm just used to Brian Molko's lyric style sometimes. It might be that. Maybe I'm simply used to it. But I have to say, I thought the songs on this record were so good, I barely ever noticed lyrical clang, which I think is saying quite a bit.
Well, I think it all depends on the quality of the rest of the song surrounding it, right?
Yeah.
So to go through the song, I mean, there's a song, The Prodigal, is really good. It's got the official Biffy Clyro string quartet sound that we've all come to love from the Bifters over the years, but it really works well. It's like a kind of Placebo Biffy Clyro song. I thought it was really good. Really love it.
I mean, the main, that is written primarily around a string quartet, as far as I can tell. That song, and there's no way that Placebo would have attempted something like that first record, second record, probably not even the third. So and they really pull it off. You've got those ghostly female vocals which back it up, and it builds to an amazing climax. I mean, it could sound very mawkish on paper, but in practice it's a really bittersweet, euphoric song, and I think it's one of the key moments of this album. I could kind of imagine it, when ITV are showing like a mixture of like football goals and stuff like that, and they have something in the background to
football goals.
Football goals. Sorry. You know what I mean.
Hey guys, coming up next on the ITV, football goals. Football goals.
But you know that they need a piece of music to underscore that all that
football
footage.
Goals.
Football goals.
Yeah.
I feel like that could be a contender for that. It feels like their Planet Earth moment, their Sigur Rós Planet Earth moment. Do you know what I mean? It's great.
Duran. This is how different me and Remfry is. When he said Planet Earth, I was like, not sure they'd use Planet Earth. More like they'd probably use Rio or Prayer or something.
I was referring to the Planet Earth documentary and them using Happy Pearl and all that.
Oh yeah. Okay, so I thought you meant Planet Earth by Duran, which is, I mean, objectively, Duran got there first, didn't they? So they win. Like, they're better than David Attenborough. Anyway, but here's the thing. I didn't really want to gloss over The Prodigal because I think it's really good. But in terms of the point, to go back to the point I was making about if the song is good, the lyrics won't be a problem. Surrounded by Spies is that is very Construction Time Again era Depeche Mode. Even Black Celebration era Depeche Mode, I think. I mean, I really like Molko's vocals on this. I think that ultra repetitive refrain that he uses, and again, I don't know every single Placebo album of the 8, but from the 3 that I am familiar with, he does have that. He does kind of hit that kind of repetitive thing a fair few times over his career. It feels like a thing that he's done.
That's probably fair.
Yeah. And I think in this context it works really well. I think Dead Fly on the national anthem is a lyric that is flies on, like, that feels like a direct nod to Flies on the Windscreen from Black Celebration by Depeche Mode, and the way that the song sounds as well, I couldn't help but go. But because it sounds more up to date, it's more like kind of playing the Angel era Depeche Mode, which is like 2005 rather than going back to 1986.
Okay.
But loads of Depeche Mode all over that song, and again, some of the lyrics you could be like, Dead Fly on the national anthem, what the fuck does that mean? But it kind of, because it's this kind of clanging, robotic, synth-driven, cold world that they create on that song, doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter that you go, what the fuck's he on about? Like, you don't really think that because the song's so good.
Yeah, it really worked for me. Surrounded by Spies, I thought it was a great song. I think it's a single. It evoked Taste in Men again. There's a few songs on here. If you like Taste in Men, which was one of the biggest Placebo singles for a long time. I think it's surpassed
I remember
now.
that coming out. Yeah,
but yeah, it was a huge single for them. There's quite a lot of material which I feel like evokes that sort of style of Placebo, but without completely retreading old ground. And I think Surrounded by Spies is one of those examples, definitely.
Yeah, I think it's followed up by a very suave, classic-sounding Placebo song. Try Better Next Time. Really catchy. I mean, that after Surrounded by Spies, I didn't think... Like, I thought it was a little bit of a... I felt like I knew that songs like this were going to be on the album. Doesn't make it a bad song particularly. Felt a little bit Placebo by numbers to me, to be perfectly honest. But
I think
not
it
bad.
is, but I think it's good Placebo by numbers.
Yeah.
I think it's okay to pad out Placebo albums with those kind of songs, you know, because I like that song. It's not one of my favourites from the record, but I think that's a decent song.
Do you want to know what my favourite song from the record is?
Yeah, go on.
Sad White Reggae. Probably my favourite song on the record. I fucking love this.
Okay.
This is amazing. This is fucking amazing. It reminds me of Duran Duran on Rio, Franz Ferdinand on their first album, and Biffy Clyro on Puzzle, with Brian Molko on vocals.
Ooh.
It's well good. It's well good, this song. Really fucking great. It's a very kind of pained, specific set of lyrics. Again, talking about going up to Dundee on a train and getting thin and not feeling fleshy. And it was one of those things where I was like, again, because the song's so good, I don't actually think the lyrics are bad at all on this song. I don't think they're bad. I think they're very descriptive. I think they're descriptive and clearly very specifically about something. Yeah. I don't really know what that thing is because it is so specific, but
that really made it better for me
It
personally.
did, it did. That's exactly what I was about to say. I think you just kind of go with the story, even if you don't know what the story is, because it feels very, very, it feels very real. You know?
Well, it becomes irrelevant what it's about, and instead you end up focusing on the emotion of whatever that thing that happened to the protagonist of the song, you know, how it made them feel. So I actually think that could be a very clever device. But I mean, yeah, certainly I think the lyrics on that song are great. Like, I think it's a beautifully evocative song, definitely. And it's one of the best songs on the record. It's not my absolute. I don't know what my favorite. I mean, my favorite is probably The Prodigal, to be honest. But it is a fantastic. Yeah, it's a great song.
Yeah, I think it's wicked. I think like that is something I've not really heard them do before. I don't know if you'll say any different. I mean, it still sounds like Placebo. Ultimately, it still sounds like Placebo. But I think there's a lot of cool shit going on that is like a very just a great mix of stylistic ideas that kind of work really well, and that kind of, because I mentioned Franz Ferdinand, that kind of noughties indie thing, which we've slagged off a lot, right? We have slagged off that a lot, but Twin Demons reminded me of The Bravery, right? And I know that people will go, oh god, The Bravery, fucking hell. But I think Placebo are a much classier band than The Bravery, obviously, because The Bravery had one song, two maybe, if you own the album like me. But that distinctive drum pattern that all of those fucking bands used, all of those bands use that drum pattern. Yeah, yeah, they all used. 15 years ago, they all used it, and it was exhausting. Like every song coming in, but 15 years down the line, with a new band, or not a new band, but with another band who've never been reliant on that drum pattern at all, and it's not very zeitgeisty anymore. Using it now, it sounds really good, rather than it sounding exhaustingly overused.
Yes,
I think it sounds like you go, it's a really cool drum beat. 15 years ago, I'd have been like, oh, come on, Placebo, don't use that. Fucking don't fall in line with everyone else. Yeah. But Placebo are not a band who've ever lived in that beat before, which means that's a really cool thing for them to do, I think. And it just goes to show that in the hands of the right band, anything can be good. Any kind of stylistic change. I mean, the reason you kind of people roll their eyes about those bands that we talk about is because a lot of them, most of them were chancers, and they were just going off. We put this beat on it, and we get fucking a guy with really good cheekbones and curly hair to wear a leather jacket and hang around Camden and wear skinny jeans and go then we'll sell loads of records and headline Reading. And unfortunately loads of people fucking fell for it in the noughties, but now it's gone away. You go, in the hands of the right band, that is a perfectly good tool to utilise for your music, and this is proof of that.
I think it all comes down to sort of how far outside of yourself that you're looking for your influences with music. So, you know, I think Placebo look at lots and lots and lots and lots of different things for influence. And I'm not convinced that those bands did. I think they just looked around themselves, and therefore it became very repetitive and very annoying very quickly. That didn't occur to me, I've got to say. But I mean, yeah, I can see what you're saying, absolutely. And yeah, this is it's another great song. I'm pretty much. There's very few songs, even the songs that I'm not as keen on this record, like Hugs, for example, which I think is okay. I don't think are bad songs at all. There isn't a single song I'd skip on this record, personally.
No, I mean, I think the quality does go up and down. For me, Twin Demons is cool. I thought Sad White Reggae was better. It and you mentioned Prodigal, which and Try Better Next Time. I was like, yeah, it's all right. Mm-hmm. But we do get, I think it kind of goes up and down a fair bit, because again, the next song, Chemtrails, is another one of the album highlights for me. It's fucking fantastic, even though it's really kind of fairly standard sounding Placebo. But I just think it's an amazing song. I just think it's a brilliant song. I think it feels like it could have been lifted from Without You I'm Nothing. Does that feel like a mad thing to kind of say? Because
mad, no.
But it also doesn't feel. It feels like it literally could have been lifted from that era, because it doesn't feel like they as a band have aged at all. I mean, I guess when we talk about bands getting older and having to grow old gracefully, and usually we're talking about Slayer. Hard for Slayer to grow old gracefully when their whole reason for existing is to play really, 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 really fast, right?
Yeah.
And that's all that they were ever going to try and do, pretty much. Obviously, don't fucking tweet me and go, oh, heard South of Heaven. I've heard South of Heaven. Of course I've heard South of Heaven. But you get what I'm saying, right? It's all about like brutal, like anger, and
certainly.
And when you get a bit older,
90% of their career,
you slow down and you're a bit like, oh. And when you get to like Repentless and Christ Illusion and those sort of albums, where it's hard. Whereas Placebo, because of the manner of the music they make, it means if they want to do that stuff from earlier in their career, I think they can do it to a almost identical standard. They're probably better songwriters. They're obviously much more in tune with what it is about them that makes them. Yeah. And I think Chemtrails it's just got a massive fucking fuck off chorus. It sounds like classic Placebo. It also reminds me a little bit of, we spoke about Wild Type Droid by Failure last year, which is one of my favourite albums of last year. And it's got a bit of that on it as well. It's got that kind of, get in, get out, tag a huge chorus in the middle of it. This is not rocket science, but it can't not work. And there's a fair bit of like fuck Brexit and sort of fuck being part of a I don't know how would you say it. There's a kind of more like a sort of fuck nationalism and just fuck sort of insular thinking, which I think comes across with a fair bit of acerbic anger from Brian on it as well, which I thought was an interesting lyrical stance for the band to be taking.
Yeah, it's become, I think Chemtrails is a blueprint for a latter day Placebo song in a lot of ways, and I don't mean that as a bad thing necessarily, because I think they've really hit on something great. I have a huge fondness for their Battle for the Sun album, and Chemtrails reminds me of a lot of the material from that. And I think things that they've been doing since Meds and things, they've kind of really, they always had an identifiable sound, but they've really grown into it. And certainly those things you were talking about growing gracefully into it. I mean, I think undoubtedly Placebo are better songwriters now than they were in their early days, and that's not discounting the early albums because I really like them, but they are definitely better songwriters, like undoubtedly, the way that they can bring these songs together and stuff like that. Did you want to talk about This Is What You Wanted?
I want to talk about every single song on the album, pretty much. I think.
Yeah.
That's another highlight for me. This Is What You Wanted. I think this album has got a few highlights, and quite a few of them come towards the end of the album. I really like the way the album kind of slows down, which is more kind of as we get past this song, really. But this sounds like
to get there. But yeah, you carry on.
Yeah,
cool.
This sounds like Hey Hey My My by Neil Young mixed with Clocks by Coldplay, with Brian Molko on vocals again. The piano sounds lovely. He sounds great. The vocal hooks are all over the place. It's very subtle. It's really classy. It's fucking excellent. That's all I've got to say, really.
Yeah, I will just second all of those things so that we can get on to Went Missing.
Yeah, Went Missing right now. Like I say, the way that this album kind of slows down and ends on something of a melancholic note, I think is one of the best things about the record, personally. Yeah. You're nodding your head.
Yeah, I love it. Yep.
That's good. I mean, the last song, I thought This Is What You Wanted is great. I'm not sure that Went Missing is actually quite as great, but it does sound like the Pet Shop Boys at the start, kind of Please era Pet Shop Boys. I don't use that lightly as a comparison. But I think this is where this album really starts to kind of slow down more. It is a very, very good song. I think the cool descending chord sequence that comes in about a minute and a half away from the end is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. It is very good, this. I do actually think This Is What You Wanted is slightly better. But as the first of, I guess, the trilogy to close this album out, this is where we get to an interesting part of the record for me.
Yeah, I like this song. I like this song a lot. Interesting that it evokes the Pet Shop Boys for you. For me, it evokes David Bowie, especially when Molko is sort of quite deeply intoning the I fell off the face of planet Earth, I went missing for a living, which felt like it could have come straight from Bowie's mouth almost. It sort of reminded me of Bowie's Earthling album, although, not in a maligned sense, because, obviously that's a hit and miss album for a lot of people, but the Earthling album, but like updated a little bit. I thought it was really quite beautiful, this song. I think it is eclipsed even further by the next song, but I do really like this, and I don't know. I know there was a strong relationship between Bowie and Placebo, and I don't know whether it was very much Molko's intention to evoke Bowie or not, but it was very strong for me. I can't listen to this song without thinking of Bowie.
They had a pretty good close relationship, didn't they, Bowie and Placebo?
Well, Bowie took Placebo out, I believe, a few times, and I want to say around the Without You,
it's not in a sniper. Actually, took them out on tour, by the way. I should say it's not in a sort of sniper way.
Sure, I'm sure most people were thinking that. So thank you for correcting me there.
Yeah. It's not very nice, is it, Renfrew? When people unnecessarily correct you like a pedant.
Oh, fair play. He's on a version of the title track from Without You, I'm Nothing as well. There's a version which features Bowie, which is excellent. Yeah. Yes. So yeah, Went Missing. I love it. But
yeah, very
Fix
good.
Yourself. It's not what it's called.
It's another kind of another slow one. I mean, it's close. Sorry, I should have said actually, because I did say the first of three. It's the second of three Went Missing, isn't it? But the three that closed the album out, This Is What You Wanted, Went Missing. Fix Yourself, another sort of slow bass-driven one, seems to borrow the synth hook from The Beach by All Saints, which I liked, which is cool. Very subtle, very angry, subtly angry. This song is, isn't it? Yeah. Quiet, seething rage. You don't always necessarily think of Placebo as a angry band, but actually They do appear to have a sort of acerbic. There's a real nihilistic streak to Placebo, which I think I often forget about. Even I, with my knowledge of 3 of their albums, but 3 of their albums that I listen to a lot, right? But yeah, like I'm always like, oh yeah, like I'm like, fuck, Placebo are actually quite a kind of scabrous band on some level, even if it isn't sonically about loud guitars and screaming, wailing power chords and all that kind of shit. They are still like Molko is a Moko. What was Molko? I could fuck something sound like a cup of coffee. Molko is a lyricist, and he delivers his lyrics with sometimes often very sort of subtle, unrestrained but seething intent, and I did get that from Fix Yourself, and juxtaposing that with that lovely bass line and the hook from The Beach by All Saints, very, very cool. Something about a Caucasian Jesus in there, which I was like, okay, well, all right, but a bit much, but still fucking great, like very good.
I really like this song. That seething anger I can completely get and identify. I mean, I think the way that Placebo utilize anger is just very I don't know, indirect or more inwards. It's the seething thing that absolutely works. It's never like, you know, you don't get screams on a Placebo album or anything like that. I don't think you ever really have. I mean, you say it nicked a hook. The vocal melody from this song is almost exactly "How to Disappear Completely" by Radiohead, which I'm sure is a subconscious steal. You know, we all do it, but it doesn't really matter to me because I think it's a really beautiful sort of smorgasbord of burbling electronica that somehow manages to evoke Vangelis, Depeche Mode, and Gary Newman, all whilst miraculously sounding fresh and modern, because neither of those bands that it evokes are particularly fresh or modern. But I think it sounds like a really modern take on that stuff, and I think it is beautifully beautifully Placebo way to end this record. It's a great song, ending a really great record. I mean, 8 albums in, this is a really rock solid. That's not even rock solid. I think it's a really great Placebo record. Personally, I think it's very good.
I do. I think it's really, really good. I mean, look, I am speaking as a fairly casual fan, I guess. As someone who fucking like, I've got the debut album on vinyl. I love it. I think Without You I'm Nothing is a really good follow up to it. I kind of dipped out of them at that point because, you know, I'm so into bloody hardcore, guys, that I just got into hardcore. Sort of forgot about Placebo. I got Meds and I was like, this is good. This is really good. And then sort of forgot about them again because, oh my God, I'm such a big black metal fan, guys. Not black metal, death metal fan or whatever. But as someone who loves the stuff of theirs that I love, right, I really couldn't have asked for much more from this record, really. I mean, it reminded me of how idiosyncratic this band are. It reminded me of what great songwriters they are, and I like it very, very much. I would say, looking at the track listing in front of me now, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 11, 10 of the 13 tracks on this album I think are really good. I'd say there's probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the 10 I think are fucking top drawer excellent, like right up there with the best of Placebo. I'd have to say the best of Placebo, but so for me there's 10 really good songs, 6 absolute worldies, and 3 that are perfectly
good,
like reasonable and serviceable Placebo songs.
Nothing bad on this record.
No, and for a band who are releasing an album, you know, 26 years after their debut came out. 26 years? Is it 26 years? Fuck me, do the maths. Yeah, 26 years. 26 years after their debut. I don't think you can... I think you would be very, very unreasonable to expect more than that from a band this deep into their career.
Yes, I
Incredible.
agree.
I think even if you just went, there are 6 good songs on the 13 tracks here. I think that's where I went into this going, if half of this is good, great.
Yeah, and I
way
think,
more than half of it
I
is
think
good.
way more than half of it is great. I think, I mean, Placebo have made a career out of finding beauty in melancholy, haven't they? And Never Let Me Go, with this album, they marry that strange kind of elation with some of the most sumptuous musical compositions of their entire career, and you can't really ask for much more than that. I think this is a really, really strong record. What with the 9-year gap between this and Loud Like Love, and the fact that I didn't really get on with Loud Like Love at all, it's the only Placebo record which I would say I don't like particularly at all. I didn't think it was I didn't think it was a hole in one. I didn't think it was like it was going to be clear that I was going to love this record, but I really, really do. I think it's absolutely fantastic. It's not far away from the quality of Battle for the Sun for my money, which is by far and away the best latter day Placebo album. And sometimes I even kind of go, I think it might even be my favourite Placebo album. But yes, I think this is really, really, really strong. Really strong. And I really like it a lot.
It's very, very good. If you're a fan, if you're someone like me who's just been like, oh yeah, I liked Placebo back in the day, and then I sort of dipped in and out and whatnot. I would absolutely recommend this record.
Yeah. Yeah,
absolutely. It's made me go, fucking hell, I'm going to go back and listen to their albums properly now. Because
do Battle for the Sun first.
Well, yeah, I think that's one that a lot of people said that to me. Never Let Me Go by Placebo comes out on Friday, the 25th of March. Not sure when this review is going up, but Friday, the 25th of March, you'll be able to listen to it. I would suggest that you do that. Thanks once again for listening. Thank you again to our sponsors at 2000 Trees. They all right with being called sponsors? Some people don't like that, do they? Some people go, well, can you say partners? It's like, well, you're obviously sponsoring it, aren't you? You're obviously sponsoring it, aren't you? Anyway, 2000treesfestival.co.uk/tickets. Put in the code Riot Act. It doesn't matter. Just one word. Doesn't matter what. You could try it all in big and little letters and see if it works. I mean, I would just write it out if I.
I'd just write it out.
If you're, probably just write it out. But you'll get 10% off of your weekend ticket, and we'll see you there.
Mm-hmm.
I'll buy you some good noodles. If I see you there, I'll buy you some good noodles.
Does that go for me as well?
No, what, are you going to buy a ticket from our discount code, are you? Are you? You are? You're going to do that, are you?
Yes. Yeah, I'll do that.
You're going to be able to prove that to me when I'm buying your noodles. I'm going to need proof of this, by the way.
Yeah, I'm sure, yeah.
How are you going to prove that? I don't think you are, Remfry. The king of Arctangent, paying for a festival ticket?
Yeah, you're right.
I doubt it.
Good point.
I doubt it. Couldn't pull that shit at Lollapalooza, mate.
No, I probably couldn't, I don't think.
Or Danny Wimmer Presents. Couldn't pull that. Couldn't pull the fucking shit you pull at these festivals. Unbelievable.
Should we wrap this up?
No. Let me bully you more. Thanks very much for listening, guys. There you go. Placebo Never Let Me Go is out now. As I said, go over to 2000treesfestival.co.uk/tickets. Get 10% off with the code Riot Act, all one word. And we will see you for our weekly show coming Friday. And more reviews next week, probably. Don't know off the top of my head what that will be, but it might be something. See you later.